Well, welcome everybody. So today I'd like to talk about how to live to 100 years old, but not just about extending your uh, lifespan, just not growing old, but in fact, you know, increasing your health span and living life, enjoying life while you're, having fun and dancing and enjoying your friends and spending time with your kids and your grandkids in a way that is so fulfilling, loving that you just want more of it. So let me start with my story. 8 years ago, I monetized my real estate business, and it was a big sale. We had asset sales of about 5 billion, and it was the third time that I monetized my real estate platform. And at that time, I wanted to celebrate. So let me tell you what I did and how that changed my life. I decided to do something big. So I curated a trek, the last 1 degree to the North Pole. That's about 70 miles. And I did it with my best friend, who's my brother, Bob. And so I did this because it was going to be special, and very few people do this. And what I didn't realize when we got there is this was a very challenging and dangerous trek. So it was minus 30 to minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So getting frostbitten was a given. There was no direct route to the North Pole. If you think about it, the ice constantly moves. So there's not one route like there is on many other treks. There's ice breaking. And if you don't catch that ice and react to it, fall into the Arctic Ocean, big trouble. And another example is the polar bear are just awakening from hibernating and very hungry, looking for food that looks just like us. So we had to carry revolvers to scare away or kill the polar bear if we encountered them. On this trek, we were scared. We were vulnerable. And we had nothing to do but talk about our lives and going back in our childhood and the good, the bad, the ugly, and then talk about the future. And what we were convinced we wanted to focus on is continuing experiences like this and living a vibrant life to a very old age. So we did this trek and we set a record. We set a record getting there, first humans to be there in 2018. With that, we felt like supermen. We felt like we were in great shape and great health. When I came back to the States, I got a checkup. Of course, I had frostbite in 7 different places. My toenails had been removed. Didn't have feeling in my fingernails, in my fingers for 5 months. But beside that, I wanted to get a check on one thing, my cardiovascular health, because that's the #1 killer in the US. I expected a good report. My doctor called me and said, "Peter, the results are normal. They're average for guys your age." I said, "Whoa, what do you mean guys my age? I'm not average when it comes to health and wellness." And so this is the call that really woke me up that there might be a problem. But I thought it was a mistake, so I took a more intense cardiovascular test. And that test came back with very bad news. I had severe blockage in my carotid artery. So much so that if it got a little bit worse, I had to go to the hospital. This was seriously dangerous. So at that time, I committed myself for focusing on my time, committing capital, and my focus on finding out how to live a healthy and vibrant life to a very old age, possibly to over 100 years old. And that's what started my journey. So if you think about someone who's going to live healthy to 100, what does that look like, right? Well, unfortunately, what's happened over time is, we've gone from living outdoors in nature and living naturally with sunlight and fresh air to the city hustle bustle that a lot of us engage in now. And although society has put a lot of focus on healthcare and money on health, we've really gone in the wrong direction. Do you know that our health span, those years that we live healthy, since 1990 has not increased much at all. In fact, as a percentage of our lifespan, it's decreased. So why is that? How did we get there? Well, let me just show you some facts going back in time. So this is the prevalence of obesity in US adults. So look back in 1960 to 62, 10% of us were considered obese, right? And as you can see, we had a big jump from, during the 80s and 90s up to almost 28%. And today, we're at almost 36%. And we think it's going to head over 50%. So it's pretty ugly. So what's happened? In the early 60s, the food companies said, it's fat. It's fat that is causing issues. Let's get rid of fat. Well, that affected a lot of what people would buy to eat. So in the early 70s, there was a lot of research done that says, no, it's not fat, it's sugar. It's sugar that's bad. Well, the food industry didn't like that because most of the food they were making was filled with sugar. So from the mid-70s to 2000, a lot of these companies made, let's call it fake food, bars and healthy drinks and healthy foods and all this sort of stuff. Well, look what happened to obesity. And then what happened, the food companies got even smarter. Let's make these foods addictive. So the more you taste, the more you want. And so you're addicted to a lot of fake foods with sugar. So what happens is our diet became filled with sugar that was obvious, like that in a can of, let's say, Coca-Cola, and those that are not so obvious. Processed food, for example. And we now believe that sugar is responsible for at least 70% of the modern diseases and obesity. And so sugar is the number one issue that we have to deal with when we're eating. How did this happen? Well, it's the power of the food companies. If you look at the food companies, and you look at, next slide, please. Look at the food companies, and you look at what's happening is you'll notice that the FDA is really served by these large food companies. There we go. So look at all those names that you recognize, right? They produce most of the food that we eat. And most of the food, to make it taste good, has sugar in it. And to be addictive, has sugar in it. So, what should we do about this? Next slide. Well, we have to come up with a different approach to eating. Now, I'm not suggesting that anyone go on a so-called strict diet, because diets are fads, and you go on it and then you go off it. But there is a formula for health here that I'd like to share with you. And it has to do with getting into ketosis, using fasting as a tool, and then focusing on sleep and sunlight. Now, this is all in addition to exercise, which I'll go over later. So, ketosis. What is ketosis? Well, it's when your body is rid of sugars and flours so that it metabolizes in a way that your body has high energy in a very natural and sustainable way. In addition to that, you don't want glucose spikes or insulin spikes through sugar rushes. So I used to think, to be healthy, I would pack a Cliff Bar with a bottle of orange juice and have that before a workout, right? I get my healthy carbs in. Absolutely not the right way to do it. To stay in ketosis, you have to avoid sugars and flours and anything that raises your insulin, because that causes disease. So, fasting. Fasting's easy. And I look at this as I'm going to give you 3 examples of fasting. One, you could have a condensed window for which you eat daily, right? So you've heard the, 12 and 12, 16 and 8, or 8 and 16, so on and so forth. So it's really easy to create some sort of window where your system has flushed out all your food, and your body is sort of eating up what's already in your body and not depending on food that you're putting into your mouth.
Did we lose Peter, or is it?
So, we good?
Yep, you're good. Yeah, you got
Okay.
here.
So, what I do is I start my day eating at around noon. I skip breakfast. I have a coffee. That's wonderful. I have a coffee where I add some MCT oil or fat. And so with my coffee and my MCT oil or fat, I get through the morning, and I fast until lunch. And then I have a lunch. Again, I start with fats and protein. I avoid sugar. I avoid what I would call bad carbs. Good carbs are vegetables and fruits. And then midday, I'll have a snack. I'll have nuts. I might have some fruit, might have some yogurt, and then I'll end with dinner. Some folks I know love breakfast. They need breakfast. They're up early and they want a breakfast. So in that case, you have a breakfast. And maybe then you have a big lunch. And then maybe you have an early dinner instead, right? Find the fasting window that works for your schedule. You're all busy, right? You're all in business. You're all, maybe perhaps some of you have families, you have friends, right? So, construct this so it works for you, where you constrict your eating window. Number two, 1 day a week, I eat 1 meal a day. I do it on Mondays. So Sundays is my cheat day. I sort of eat whatever I want. I'm Italian, so I have Sunday Italian. I don't go crazy, but I'll have my bowl of pasta, and I will cheat a little bit. And then Monday, I don't eat until dinner. It's not hard. Every 3 months, I do a 3-day fast. And what happens after you fast for 72 hours is it completely improves your digestive system and the way your body uses and eats up all the dead cells in your body. So it resets your metabolism. And for 3 days, you don't have to do a complete water fast. You can do a mimicking fasting. There are several protocols for that. Or just eat certain foods in very small quantities to not spike your insulin. So that's how you do fasting. Okay, next. Let's talk about sunlight and sleep. Both are critical. A night of bad sleep can shut down your immune system completely. So here's the secret about sleep. I used to think that I was going to sleep when I was dead. Like I wanted to be up as long as possible so I could work hard, I could play hard, I could spend time with my family, and I could spend time with my friends. I actually hired a sleep coach to train me to sleep 4.5 to 5 hours a night so I could wake up and start my day earlier and end my day later. And boy, after research, this was all wrong. Absolutely wrong. So what the scientists recommend now is minimum of 7 to 9 hours of sleep and focus on quality of sleep. But what's most amazing and most easy to manage is scientists at Harvard just discovered and just sort of proved out that the most important sleep protocol is consistency. So going to sleep consistently about the same time and waking up about the same time as many days as possible can add 6 years to your health span, much more than worrying about number of hours of sleep and quality of sleep. So this is easy. Establish a protocol. I have a protocol. I sort of shut it down and I start 2 hours before I go to sleep. I don't eat anything in those couple of hours. I start to de-stress my brain. I write down in my gratitude journal things I'm grateful for. I dim down the lights. I don't watch anything on TV, particularly anything that creates my mind going fast or excitement or upsetness. So no news, right? I don't look at my phone. I don't look at my emails. I take a hot shower before I go to bed. And when I go to bed, I have a cool room and completely dark. And I read until I fall asleep. That's my protocol. Find your sleep protocol to create consistency to when you go to bed and when you wake up. Okay. So let's talk about sunlight. Sunlight's incredibly important. Incredibly important. So what I suggest that you get in sunlight as early as you can, first thing in the morning. If you're an early riser, try to get outside when the sun rises. If you're in a place where that's not possible, go for a morning walk. If you're gonna do an errand in the morning and normally drive, maybe walk or ride your bike. I have morning calls. I put my ear pods in and I go outside and I walk on those early phone calls. What I make sure I don't do is I don't schedule my mornings with all activities inside, so I don't get outside in nature and I don't feel the sunlight. So sunlight is that important. Another thing, you don't need sunglasses. Only use your sunglasses if it's incredibly bright out and you need to see something. It's best if your eyes absorbs that sunlight, right? So get the sunlight. It's very important. It's incredibly a key to a healthy living. Okay, next. Let's talk about exercise. So before I had this cardiovascular test, I believed I was very fit. I was a gym rat. I was in the gym 5-6 days a week. I did hard cardio. I did my HIIT exercises. I worked out fairly hard, all indoors. What I found out, and what scientists have found out, is that moving naturally outside is much more important and effective than being in the gym. So move naturally. If you listen to Dan Buettner about the blue zones, those areas in the world where there's a high percentage of people living to 100 healthy, they don't go to a gym. They don't even have gym memberships. They move naturally outside. They walk, they bike, they hike, and they have fun. So that's a way to exercise. So I learned this in a very interesting way from a good friend of mine, Sir Richard Branson. So I've become friends with Richard, and I've traveled with him doing some extreme adventures in 3 continents. The guy he still operates and invested in 200 companies, still has a big organization. And he's 74 years old. He's in great shape. So on one of these sides, I said, Richard, I watch you. I don't see you really working out in the gym much. How do you stay in such great shape? And his answer is, I have fun doing things I like outdoors. So his routine, he wakes up in the morning, he has a cup of tea, and he goes to play tennis for 2 hours with a pro or some of his guests staying with him. In the afternoon, he'll go for a kite surf. He loves kite surfing, out on the water. 2 days a week, he'll go biking, Virgin Gorda, pretty tough elevation gain. He'll do it with his friends. He'll do it with his guests, never alone. The guy moves naturally, and that's how he stays in such great shape. And by the way, he holds 7 world records for extreme adventures. That's incredible. So move naturally. Okay. Here's a secret for my longevity plan. I have daily routines. So every day, I start out with what I call Peter's Power Hour. Now, you may be saying, listen, I'm busy. You say power hour, I don't have time. You do have time. It may not have to be an hour, but it's a particular time in the morning before you do anything else to start your day. So what I do in my power hour, right? I want to de-stress. And what do? I wake up, and the first thing I do is I move my body. I move my body for 15 minutes. This is not a workout. This is getting my body moving to get my cortisol up, to get my brain thinking, to get me going in the morning. This is before coffee. Then what I do is I de-stress. I spend 15 minutes on meditation and or breathing. I really de-stress and get my body in a very calm period to start my day. So if that's all you did, that would only take a half hour of your time in the morning. Then what I do is I train my brain. 15 minutes, I use an app called Brain HQ, and I train my brain. I keep it active. Some of you can do Wordle. Some of you can read, but I train my brain to sort of get the brain going and active. And then last thing is I journal. So I journal about who I want to be today, not what I want to do, but who do I want to show up as today. I set my intentions for the day, get my mind focused. Look at my calendar. Who do I want to show up with today? Is it a day where I have a really focused time, having challenging conversations in the office? Who do I want to be and show up as in those crucial conversations? Is this going to be a family day? I better be, loving and compassionate. Who do I want to show up today? I set my intentions. So that's my power out. 15 minutes on each of those 4 things, and I'm absolutely set for the day. The other thing I do at night, I mentioned before, part of my sleep protocol, I have a gratitude journal. I write down 3 things I'm most grateful for, just 1 sentence, maybe 2 on each. I'm most grateful for the wonderful talk I had holding hands with my wife walking tonight on the beach. I'm most grateful for the impact I made on this coworker that I'm helping with who has some challenges. Whatever it is, just write it down. And we already talked about our sleep protocol. So daily routines is a very important part. So I instituted this after this program, after I discovered that I had this cardiovascular disease. And, at the time, I was 58 years old, and my arterial age at the time was that of a 68-year-old. Now, remember, I worked out a lot. I thought I ate healthy. I thought I did a lot of things that would have me grow old healthy. So from a 68-year-old, I went through this protocol, and after 2 years, my arterial age dropped from a 68-year-old to a 48-year-old. And I have much more energy today than I did back 6 years ago. So this works. I have less stress. I have basically no stress. I had high blood pressure. I have normal blood pressure now. I had severe ADD. I was on the highest dosage allowed by law for ADD, and I tried all of the medications. I was still forgetful and couldn't focus. Today, I'm off all of that medication, and have much better focus. So this works. Just put together your daily routines, make it work for your schedule, and stick to it. It's hard work, but it's simple. Thank you very much.